I grind for the love of the game, trying to provide a waiver wire surprise. I grind for the love of the game. I don't want a surprise. I want to trust the glue guys.
Ooh, I feel like we've gotten far enough into this and just freestyling the flow of it. And sometimes that's how you get the best content, like that's that some of the best movies came out that way. They just kind of just all these comedians kind of just ripping.
I did not have a rhyme, and I was like, I have to do it right when we went on. So it was a little clunky, but it's the Glue Guys episode. We've been waiting for this one. We've been combing over our research. It's a well vetted podcast by now. We're really excited to bring this to you. This is officially Glue Guys 3.0. So if you didn't hear the other two Glue Guys
Wow.
pods last year, so this will be the first time a topic has come the third time around. So cheers to you, Natron Clean. This is the first time we've come three times around on something. So yeah, it's just kind of, I mean, it's just it really is Nate's sweet spot, as a fantasy player, finding these guys and I'll just say this before I kind of kick it to you to kind of give first time listeners an idea of what the spot's going to be. So one criteria, it's not a criteria, but it's a common kind of, it's a common thread among a lot of these players. These are players that in the past, they floated off waiver wires on and off throughout the year. And for whatever reason this season, every time you're thinking about dropping them, I think to myself, no, this is different. It's different this season with a lot of these players. And so you will see players that in the past maybe were hopping on and off waiver wires, and now I think they're staples, and you ride out the lower points on some of these guys. But yeah, any criteria you wanted to touch on what a glue guy is, Nate?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. I feel like you did touch on something. There is nothing more frustrating than looking at a player that's on somebody else's roster and know I had him and I dropped him on a Saturday to pick up fill in the blank shitty guy. And like I've regretted that ever since. Like I feel like you can look around the league and you can really quickly name the two or three guys that you did that to,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just kind of that voice in the back of your shoulder, kind of saying like, "Are you sure you want to drop that guy?"
Exactly. We are the voice in the back of your head on a Sunday when you're chasing a category, and we're saying these guys are just above the line of somebody it's okay to do that with. To cut,
Yep.
cut to stream in 3 blocks.
Well, let's launch right into it, Flyin J. I'm curious to hear how, because in years past we've kind of gone about the way that we've assessed our glue guys quite a bit differently, and the way that we've organized our takes on this. As you know, as longtime listeners know, we don't share who we're going to be talking about before we get into it. And I remember, I think it was either the first one or second one, you kind of gave everybody a dinner guest theme. Are we going to hear more dinner guests tonight?
I did not stylize these glue guys. It's all business this time around. We'll toss a little bit of that in there. But I took this topic a little seriously. It was last year, it was a little easier. I mean, I was wrestling with like 13 guys, and when you're wrestling with 13 glue guys, it's hard to find time for the funny stuff. But yeah, there's just so many names this year, at least for me. So getting into this, there was a lot of parody. A lot of the people who didn't make this first team or just as deserving as who did. So not to kill the suspense, but man, I found that there was a lot of worthy glue guys this year.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, you sent a text where when we were starting our prep that you were like, oh, I'm kind of having a harder time kind of narrowing it down or figuring out who to go for. And it got me thinking. I was like, oh, I guess part of that is that there's a couple teams that have they must be listeners to the pod. I guess the only thing that I can assume, but there's a couple teams that have really gone all in and have all glue guy teams, which isn't necessarily the best for a real NBA team. But so it makes it a little bit harder for us to select it when you're like, oh, like the Brooklyn Nets already have 6 of those guys.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's funny when you get too many glue guys that it gets too sticky. But I'll let you start the list off. I got a couple things just concrete. So with glue guys, some of these guys they started as streamers on your team and then they became must roster. I mentioned that some of these guys might not be season long holds. This doesn't mean you can never drop them, but there are players that are hard to sell for one reason or another, and you just want to make sure you're riding it out. So some glue guys can be like that. But I think what all glue guys most often have in common is the production you're getting to your fantasy team is more valuable than the perceived value as trade assets. they're more anchors than assets to your team.
That's a very well said there. Very well said. Not flashy, but they're just going to help you win week in, week out. So starting it off, I'm going to start off with this one's. I think this one might surprise you on his inclusion on this. It surprised me. I was shocked because I feel like if 2 years ago you would have told me like, all right, this guy's going to be on your glue guy team, I would have just stared at myself blankly and assumed that I had lost all my marbles. But that player is Malik Monk. Do you expect me to be talking about him tonight?
Yes, he has to be.
You did? Okay.
He has to be talked about. Yeah, no, it's a little surprising to hear you talk about him, but he fits the criteria of a player that's used to fly often on waiver wires. That this year that movement stopped.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's it is kind of a little strange because historically he's just been a straight chucker. He's been incredibly inconsistent with both his role and his production. So that's why it's kind of surprising, and we've been seeing this change happen slowly, each year getting a little bit better. And so now it's been every single year of his career, he's improved his field goal percentage and his assists simultaneously. So this season, he's given you 15, 3, and 5.5, with 2.5 threes and great percentages. So real solid there across the board. But it is surprising because when he came into the league as this really high profile player, I mean, he was a consensus 5-star recruit out of high school, went to, I forget where he went.
Kentucky, and he was in the backcourt.
Right.
So him and
Kentucky,
De'Aaron Fox
right.
shared a backcourt. I saw them play in college, and the gravity flowed through Monk, not Fox. You could tell Fox was the best NBA prospect, but people went there to see Malik Monk, and he was the go-to scorer that he is now with the Kings in college then.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I know he holds the University of Kentucky single game freshman scoring record of 47 against North Carolina of all teams too. So I mean, he was dynamite. He was dynamite in college, was a lottery pick for Charlotte, and then just proceeded to be years on years of black hole contested fadeaway deep 2 shots with no passing at all.
With the Hornets, I think looking back, the stench on that team that remains was also on his early part of his career.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a little bit of situation rather than the player a little bit. And you kind of wonder if he would have been drafted to a different organization, maybe we would be seeing this today. Because what we're seeing right now is a guy that, I mean, he's averaging 5.5 assists, which is a part of the game that we've never seen unlocked before. And so, as you mentioned, I mean, he was a guy that you would constantly be picking up and streaming here and there. At this point, he's 74% rostered. So I think his days of being a streamer player are over. Because for a number of years, he was my replacement. If somebody had already snagged Tim Hardaway Jr., I'm like, oh, I'll go Malik Monk.
Your backup chucker.
But yeah, exactly.
Nice. No, I love it, man. I will just go ahead and reveal that Malik Monk, I did a 6-man this year. Like I said, I had a hard time narrowing it down. So because he is the leading 6-man of the year as far as the Vegas odds right now, he is the 6-man on my Glue Guys team. It fits perfectly. So yeah, you touched on it. The assists, they went up from 3.9 last season to 5.4 this year. And the main reason is they're letting him run the point on the during the minutes that Fox sits. So he'll take these 5-minute breaks, go to the bench, and then they bring in Monk, not just to play off ball, but to run the show. So you're getting a dime and a half more this season. You're getting over a 3 a game more than last season, and we just have more volume.
Wow.
So the volume increase has boosted him up to Glue Guys for both of us. So that's one of one as far as 100% on us having the same players. But yeah, man, he has been incredible this season, and games when Fox doesn't have it, he's stepped it up. And so hopefully on your fantasy team, when your studs don't have it, now you have this guy rounding out your roster that's picking up and raising the floor of your team, and that's what a glue guy is supposed to do.
Yeah, I guess it's a good example of just because the guy got moved from the starting lineup to the bench doesn't mean that you need to panic.
Thank you. No, exactly. Okay, I'm looking forward to this one. This is the one I struggled with the most, and I'm going to move in order of positions. So this is my first team glue guy point guard. Let's go ahead just for funsies. So last season, my first team all glue guy point guard was King Killian Hayes. I haven't been calling him King too often. That was the frosty on your brownie glue guy. And I think Jalen Suggs has put a little frosting on Brownie's fantasy managers this season. Jalen Suggs is my point guard here. It's
two for two.
Okay, and that feels good. And I know you've had him all season on our league record. He is currently 105th season rank. So he's dropped a little bit. He's 58% roster. That's down 8 in the past week. But I think, his season rank was 75 a week ago, and I would hold Suggs through this. They're integrating Fultz back into the lineup. Coach Mosley had a quote about Suggs last week where he said he was very under the weather. He had played 14 minutes that game. But he's been mighty sick lately, but he's been sick all year for your fantasy team. So I would swoop if somebody drops. I think he's just been awesome this year. I would buy the dip on your boy, Jalen Suggs, and even the past 14 days here, you're getting 3.3 threes. You're getting 15 points. You're getting almost 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. So just ride out this awkward little portion, because I think for both of us, it sounds like, and I'll toss it to you, Jalen Suggs is a guy where when you're thinking about picking up a hot free agent, find someone other than Suggs in a 12-team league.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm amazed that we've started off in lockstep here. I mean, the questions for Suggs entering into the season were twofold. I mean, what was his role going to be, in regards to Fultz and to a lesser extent, Cole Anthony and Anthony Black. And then the second question was, would he be able to bring enough offensively to justify being a hold year round? We knew he was going to bring defensively, and he's answered both questions swimmingly. I mean, you were talking about the 3-pointers. I mean, that's been a huge jump up in his game. Something that we hadn't seen right off the bat. It's been, and we've talked about him on an earlier pod. I forget which one that was. But in any case, we kind of talked about how his position has switched. When he came into the league, they had him playing point guard, and so his rookie year, he was averaging 5.5 assists a game. He's now really their de facto shooting guard, which means his assists have dropped, but his efficiency has really shot up. I mean, he's gone from 36% his rookie year to 42% to 46% this year. So you'll gladly take that slight dip in assists to see across the board efficiency, and while still maintaining those really high end defensive stats.
Exactly. Yeah, he went 6 of 7 today in a lower usage game as he's working his way back from whether it was a non-COVID illness or he did have COVID. It's been interesting this year because you'll have illness or you'll have non-COVID illness. Have you seen a single mention of COVID for any player this season?
That's a good point. Now that you say that, no, not even a single one.
So my working theory is when you see illness, it means it could be COVID, and non-COVID. Why would you specify non-COVID and then other times just say illness? So you had about a week to 10 days where he wasn't getting a lot of minutes. His production was bad. The coach said he was sick. I think he's getting over COVID. A little speculation, but I would just check and float out your worst player for Suggs. I was going to do that today, but the only league I don't have Suggs is the league you have Suggs, so I didn't bother. But yeah, I'd check it out, man. I think people, if they're worried about Fultz coming back, it's just Suggs, his role is more secure than it was in the past, so that's cool. So 2 for 2, that's nuts.
Yeah, I think you have a couple more guys. I mean, you want to just roll right into a second one?
Yeah, I'm definitely down to do that. So the shooting guard is probably, as far as production, the closest thing to had to cut him is maybe he's graduated from glue guy. But when I tell you the name of this player, it's just crazy what he's doing. There's nobody that's surprising me more than this guy right now. His season rank is 66. He's up to 79% rostered on Yahoo. That player is a high pedigree, former number 8 overall pick. He was acquired in the Kyrie Irving trade. This is Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton, I think, has been viewed as a relative disappointment, and so he kind of was a forgotten guy this year, but I think he's become glue guy material in this 6 NBA season, excuse me. The double sport thing leaks out. And I think he's graduated to glue guy. He may soon become a graduate glue guy, which is what I'm calling a player such as like Austin Reeves, a player who would be a glue guy, but they're just too close to the top 60 on the season to call him a glue guy. But I think we could have that with Sexton. So special ingredient, this guy's getting to the line 4.5 times a game in under 24 minutes on the season. He shoots 90%. It's a top 15 mark in the league. His free throw attempts over the past month are at a 90% clip. Again, this guy's not playing starters minutes. He's starting at 2 guard for the Jazz, but he's just been crazy efficient long enough to where it's not a blip. 21 points, 5 assists, 2.5 boards, almost 2 triples, a steal, over 50% from the field and 90% from the line in the past month. That's what Colin Sexton's doing for your fantasy team. He's the 33rd ranked player in NICAT over the past 2 weeks. And that team is just playing together, and he's kind of become like
and winning.
It's crazy. I mean, obviously, this kid Will Hardy is a wizard. He's not a Washington Wizard, no. But I mean,
no, it'd be terrible then. Yeah, it'd be really bad.
But yeah, I just think is there another top 50 player right now that you would guess if say you had to right now, if we played a fun game, you had a couple drinks, and I was like, name all the top 50 players over the past month, would Colin Sexton even cross your mind?
No. Nope. I probably would need 140 guesses
or 140 drinks.
Well, okay, yeah.
But yeah, man. So Colin Sexton, if you were able to nab him, he's just surprising you every day. It's just so high efficiency. The assists are up from the past, and he's solidified with the team that's been winning since he's taken this role on. So yeah, I think as a player who's point guard and shooting guard eligible, Colin Sexton is my easy choice for the all glue guy shooting guard.
I love his inclusion here. I'm glad that you got him in. It's so confounding to me. Do you think? Can I ask you a question then?
Yes, yeah.
So he's been great right now, and I think this is what I think a lot of people drafted him as last season, thinking that you might be seeing when they were picturing the tanking Jazz of last season. Do you think he was kind of just coming back from injury? It took him a year to kind of get his legs fully under him. I mean, he kind of had that rough blown knee, I believe. And or is this more just the coaching has more trust in him? Is he growing as a player? I just don't quite understand the timing of it, because I always believed in him. Back in Cleveland days, we had discussions, and I was more Colin Sexton, the Darius Garland team, which actually that's not aging too great, but
hey, but right now, for the last month, you'd rather have Colin Sexton than Darius Garland on your fantasy team. Is that? I think what is it?
You probably would rather have Colin Sexton on your podcast too. I can't imagine Darius Garland's giving great content on the airways with his wired jaw.
No, that's a good point. No, I think just to get back to your question on Colin Sexton, the first thing that comes to mind, which is just a catch-all response, but I think it's true, is sometimes it takes a long time for lead guards. We'll call them point guard, shooting guard, whatever, lead facilitators from the guard position to really figure it out. Those Cleveland teams were a little awkward. It was a clunky fit with him and Garland. And I think when he came over last year, nobody expected that Lauri Markkanen would become Dirk Nowitzki. So maybe he's, I think his role was reduced because an unexpected leap happened from a player who was honestly glue guy material in some of his prior seasons, or that season in Cleveland, that jumped to a top 12 ADP. I mean, I think right now he's in the top 12 on the season. He's been insane. So I think he had to find the role he could flourish in, and then he was able to kind of up that usage in that role. But I mean, yeah, it's still blown me away. I mean, do you think Jalen Green in Houston has this sort of, it just gives me hope for some of these high usage guards that come into the league, and it takes them all to figure it out.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's fair points. I mean, I'm going to keep holding my breath for Scoot Henderson in the same time too.
May have to hold for a few years, but again, keep it held.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't give up.
If I pass out, just resuscitate me.
Just keep a picture of Colin Sexton, 2024 Colin Sexton under your pillow.
All right, fair point. Right. So my next guy is it's a little awkward timing wise, just because when we started to put together this list, I had him on there, and he's since gone into quite a header of a week. So I went back and forth on whether to keep him in there, and have decided that I believe it, and then I've since talked myself into even more than that.
I
So
gotta pause you just because I need this. I need to relate to you right now so bad. No one else probably understands. I went through the exact same process, and it's quite a process. Just vetting your own glue guy process. That exact thing you described, I went through it this week. I'm curious if it's about the same player. It could be. So yeah, just had to let you know. You're not alone.
it might be, yeah, it is. It's funny with these fringe guys because, because that's the difference. We're talking about guys that are typically ranked right around 100, give or take.
Right.
And so you get a bad week and then their rankings look like they shouldn't be on your team.
Right.
But then you have a good week and they jump back up again. So, the guy that I'm talking about here is Maximum Struess.
Okay, so he did end up making it interesting. He fell off the chopping block for me, so I'm looking forward to hearing this. But yeah, man, don't lose your way with Struess. I get it.
Yeah, on the season, he's 73rd total, 95th in per game. But over the last month, he's giving you he's the 193rd ranked player over the last month, which is terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
terrible.
absolutely dragging your team down. The reason that I wanted to keep him in here, and the more I was thinking about it, is really that last month has completely overlapped with missing Mobley and Darius Garland. So he's been kind of thrust into that number 2 role, which
Next
he
level.
clearly.
This is next level analysis, people. Listen to this. Exactly. You got to have the right players in the right roles.
Yeah, so I think I'm thinking that this is a great opportunity to actually to go for him in a trade. I mean, he's been last week he was 74% rostered when we started researching. He's down to 63%. I'm guessing that by time Garland comes back, he might be sub 50%. So there's a very good chance that you can just find him on the waiver. But here's the case, I think, for Maximum Struess. And sorry for calling him Maximus. I didn't really look up his real name. I assume that's what it is. But
I thought you were saying Maximum Struess, like Maximum Derek White. I was loving it.
Which would be great. And we do need to get a little bit of a sound graphic. I think once we get our sound guy hired, and you can kind of start plugging in some of this stuff. But
hey, any sound guys listening, please reach out to us. We might be able to hook you up with might be able to hook you up with a little something. So please, we could use help in this area.
Clearly. But so on the season, he's given you 14 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 1 steal, three threes. But really, what's kind of stood out the more I looked is what's dragging his ranking down a little bit is that he's shooting sub 40% from the field.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a punt field goal percentage build, his rank jumps up to 57
on the season still.
On the season, Maximus Struess is 57th ranked player if you're down to just punt field goal percentage, which is pretty. I mean, that's for a guy that might just be sitting in your wire is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that last point's important. You mentioned seeking him in a trade. I'd first check your wire. He dropped in the public league I'm in to the wire, and I got distracted by some of the shiny new toys in Memphis, and somebody paid $20 for him. So somebody clearly subscribes to the philosophy that once the pieces are back in place in Cleveland, he won't feel like this burden to do things he's not meant to do. He can pop off occasionally for a big game, but you're right. I think that he's meant to be a role player if he's going to be a glue guy. So I guess similar to Suggs, like you're saying, hold the line with Struess.
Hold the line there, yeah. And another reason to hold the line is if you click on his Wikipedia page, if the immediate picture that shows up is Max Struess in a bucket hat, which is pretty stellar. And so I think that's enough to like kind of give him a couple rankings points, bump him up there. But a guy that can confidently rock a bucket hat, especially on his Wikipedia page of all things, that's worth something.
The first bucket hat I ever saw, and this was like a Cat in the Hat style bucket hat. Like, remember in the mid 90s when they were huge, was Gary Payton when we won the Western Conference Finals, we being the Seattle Supersonics. And he had he wore this big old Cat in the Hat bucket hat, and it became all the rage. They were selling them at Seattle at carnivals at different Nicky Knack shops or whatever. But he had one of these.
Did you own one?
Of course I owned one. Yeah. Fantastic. If anybody out there has one of these, I lost it over the years. One of these Sonics colored Cat in the Hat bucket hats. Please send us, hit us up, and I got to get a hold of this picture. Get us on Twitter. Drop it in the YouTube comments. I'd love to see it. But yes, that's a good point.
Yeah,
hold the line.
The last point just on Max Struess that I had was just thinking that, I think there's some people that, he was with the Heat for a while. I think his path is kind of well chronicled coming into the league. I mean, he started out at some place called Lewis University, which sounds like some sort of shady for-profit school,
Right.
before going to DePaul, and then signing on with the Celtics, getting cut, playing 2 games for the Bulls, getting cut. But I think, I think there's a lot of people that might be having this thought of like, oh, we saw Maximus Strus last year. He's just reverting back to the player that he is. And I think the argument against that would be that in Cleveland, he's averaging 6 more minutes per game. And so those 6 extra minutes are really the difference. And that's what's turning into 2 extra points, 2 extra rebounds, and 2 extra assists. So I think that it's just another reason to buy low on him.
I gotta say, it's funny. Like, been over a year now. So last year's, it was like a New Year's resolutions pod where we were doing our kind of our gripes and our hopes. One of yours was just get a competent small forward in with the Cavs. I don't care who he is because I want to pick him up. And so, so it's nice to hear you staying true to that because you were asking for this before it ever came to fruition.
Oh yeah, nice long memory there, and they finally did it. And plus, they have George Nang, who apparently hit what, like 11 threes or something tonight.
The minivan, and they have your new boy Sam Merrill apparel.
What a great nickname!
I just came up with that. Okay, so we'll keep it moving for the people and for Natron. So let's go ahead and touch on my small forward. It's similar to what you said about Strus. Actually, this is a player that was rock solid in there, and I had to stick with my guns. I went to comb through the stats today, and he's still the guy for me right now. And that's Aaron Nesmith in Indiana. He's kind of
excited to hear about him.
Okay, let's do it. Last year was also Indiana. It was Buddy Hield. That was my all.
Mr. Plow.
Mr. Plow. Yeah, say it again. That's Mr. Plow. So Mr. Plow this year is Aaron Nesmith. It's not quite as exciting. He's got some shin soreness right now, so he's down 8% in the past week on Yahoo. He's 32% rostered. He's a small forward and power forward, which is nice. It can be tough. You could lose one player, Desmond Bain, look at your team and be like, oh, I have one small forward. Cool. This is fun. So, small forwards again are a little, there's scarcity there. So keep that in mind when you're dropping small forwards. Take a look at your wire and be like, what would I do if I needed a small forward?
Good point.
That's not a special ingredient though. To me, Nesmith has emerged as the premier trickle of stats glue guy out of a small forward or power forward eligible player this season. He's become the player that we thought Jalen McDaniels was going to be in fantasy. He's a great defender in Minnesota, but he's just not bringing those defensive stats. So here's his last month in 9-cat. He is the 62nd ranked player. He's given you 12 points, 4 boards, 1.5 times, and that's pulling enough weight to keep you in for the 2.5 threes, for the 1.6 steals, and for the block. You're also getting 50% from the field and 90% from the line on low volume, but that's nice. So it's just one of these players again that like feels easy to look past. But this is what glue guys are supposed to be. This is, he is to our fantasy team, I think, what he is to the Pacers. He's somebody that, his rostership is criminally low, and I haven't looked at updated rotations post trade, but I think his role as defending the best player every night on the other team, it's not going to change. So I think he's easy to overlook, but he's been rock solid all season. Want to give him his flowers. He's still 75th in season rank this season. And I just like having guys like this. I think he's the perfect trickle of stats, defensive-minded forward glue guy here. So the all glue guy 3.0 small forward is Aaron Nesmith, a cast-off from Boston.
I love that you included him here. I feel like there's some players that and I'm sure we all do it. We just kind of look past a little bit. Yeah. I know a 2-sentence elevator pitch on him, but when I'm watching the games, I never pay attention to him, and I just I have a hole there. And
this is really honest stuff.
He's somebody I've always been curious about, and yeah, you're right. I looked him up. He's 32% rostered across the league, which is shockingly low for what those stats that you just laid out. And it will be interesting to see what that rotation looks like post trade.
It's interesting. I think if you go through, and I did comb through, and I don't have the data in front of me, but Yahoo has this feature, and we've talked about it before. It's called the MVPs, and it's the players who have the highest percentage of rostership on the top 500 Yahoo public teams. Neesmith was up there. He was like in the top 10 on that metric. And in our league, James Robinson, him and I and you at the times, and probably someone I'm dissing right now, have been neck and neck for first and second. But James Robinson's right there. I believe he and I have 2 losses right now. Could be 3. Anyways, he's had Neesmith rostered the whole season, and I do want to give you a shout out, James Robinson. That's good process right there. I think holding Neesmith and having an eye on the glue guys this year. Obviously, this podcast has helped you. You've clearly gotten better at fantasy, and we will accept donations to pay for a sound guy.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome for you doing well. We'll take credit.
He's improved. No, but yeah, shout out to the Aaron Neesmith owner in our league. But yeah, so that's what I got on Neesmith. Who do you got next here? Any forward? Interesting. I'm curious what you thought of the forwards process when going through the list this year.
It was I know you had said that we're gonna do kind of a first team, second team type model, and I kind of went at it on a slightly different process, and that I just thought, well, I'll just kind of cast a wide net, and then I'll pick the 5 guys initially that just seem to kind of fit that I want to talk about or kind of seem the most interesting to me. And then now looking at it, ironically, they're a cohesive team in that they all play 1 through 5 positions. And then I got a couple other fringe guys here to talk about too. But the next guy that I have, I suspect that he's somebody that you're a little bit higher on than I am. And I was actually shocked just kind of doing these dives that he made my inclusion, mainly because I don't like the fit of this player on this team at all, and that's Naz Reid.
Naz Reid, okay. I didn't even consider him. I have a long running list. He's not even on it. Interesting.
Okay, yeah. So I'm glad to hear that. We don't have total overlap again. Naz Reid is somebody that I just didn't. The Minnesota Timberwolves re-signed him last season. They re-signed him to that 3 years for $42 million contract, which I thought was really surprising given how notably largely invested they are in bigs. What did you think about that signing when Minnesota did that over the offseason?
I thought it was surprising, especially all the fuss that had been made about, and at the time, and the jury's still out. We'll see what they can do with Gobert right now. I think he's 33. They just had one of the worst trade packages sent out for a center that we've ever seen as far as the assets they gave up in that deal. And then Walker Kessler maybe hasn't taken that second year leap, but people were saying, I'd rather have Kessler than Gobert in a vacuum, and you could have kept the 5 first-round picks. So I thought it was a funny follow-up to that, but he's an asset. And, when you have an asset on a reasonable contract like Naz Reid, it gives you flexibility moving forward. So I thought of it as this: it's asset retention. And so in that way, I thought it was smart.
Oh yeah. Like maybe not a long-term piece, but just like it's something that you don't have another vehicle to acquire those assets.
And we talked about asset retention on Flyin J's Business Spot on the 14th episode as it pertains to fantasy basketball. So if you want to go back and check that out. But yeah,
that was an interesting crossover. And I think I obviously, my portfolio is up 30% since then. And so I've been able to pay off my fleet of jet skis, which is nice. And, but you obviously need a second fleet, but
we all have our C do's and our C don'ts.
That's true. That's episode 22, but, going back to Naz Reid, though, in the fantasy basketball content, I guess what he's been kind of giving you is that kind of really boring but consistent level. And so you're getting really good efficiency, 50% from the field, 85% from the stripe, 2 threes, 13 and 5 as far as points to rebounds go, with kind of an even amount of defensive stats trickled in. And he's doing this all in 23 minutes. So it kind of gives you some glimmer of upside in that as well. And I think that upside, we're kind of slowly seeing that come about a little bit, because I always think of him as a kind of a boring mid-career vet. But in reality, he's still only 24 years old.
Whoa. That would have been a fun one. I would have said 27.
Yeah, I would have been interesting if I would have said who's older, him or Kyle Anderson. I'm not sure if I would have taken, but I would have said they're both 37. But
or him or your boy Taylor Horton Tucker, the
right, yeah.
19-year-old Taylor Horton Tucker.
The weirdest thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is interesting, and I had last season. I think I had some frustrations watching the team and watching how they were using Naz Reid a little bit, because I think it's one thing is clear: the organization has a ton of confidence in Naz Reid when he's on the floor, especially when he's playing minutes without Cats. I think there's some times where he almost occupies this Embiid-esque role for them, which is really surprising. I mean, he's like a 23-25% usage player, which for a backup big man playing behind two max players is really not something you would expect by any means. And so when he's out there, it's I in my mind, I was almost like, okay, I think management is going to 86 him because Chris Finch loves giving him the ball so much that they need to like remove this option from him. But it's working out really well for him this season, and so I think basically what you're getting right now is you're getting a really good glue guy. He's the 82nd ranked player in fantasy, but you know, if there's an injury to anywhere between McDaniels down, you know, then I think you're looking at potentially a top 60 guy.
You know, two things. I think one thing that keeps him on the floor is he allows them to replicate the spacing that they have with Cat on the floor when Cat's on the bench. And so it gives some, you know, continuity to the offense depending what personnel's out there. I'm curious, is Naz Reid both center and power forward eligible in Yahoo this year? I didn't.
You know, it's a good question. I'm gonna type that up and stall while I look.
Because I had trouble with some of it. When you have the one center spot in Yahoo.
He is, yeah.
It's just center or he is power forward?
Both. Nice.
That's a huge carrot because you really got to find a line with the center only players, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit when we get to the my center, because there's a lot of really solid centers. And see, I mean, there's streamers you can grab almost every night. Like no one has room for the plum dog, but last night he had a very respectable line out of nowhere. There's always center, so I love that he has the power forward eligible. I think for me that bumps him up on the good guy list a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really strong point, because also, I mean, the Yahoo default league is 2 centers, but not every league does that, and so a lot of those rankings you see an artificial increase in centers, but if you don't have that, then you need to know that you need to move those guys down a little bit, because you don't need to be rostering so many guys to get you 8 and 8.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that's strong. Right on. I like that one. Well, I got to say, this isn't going to be as fun as last year with the power forward. We're going blue collar. Last year, the power forward was the ice cream before dinner glue guy. That was PJ Washington. He is a weekly ceiling raiser. I think this guy is like the meat and potatoes dinner guest. You know, he shows up and just a piece of beef, just like dried out roast beef. You know, the kind that really needs extra gravy, but the gravy's a little congealed. But man, it's hearty. You're always going to get full. There's plenty of salt and pepper on the table. Like you're ready to eat. You know, it's like, this is a hard hat glue guy. And I do think you'll agree with his inclusion on the list, but it's just not very fun. This player has a season rank of 131. He's 85% rostered. He nails the criteria of player that used to kind of fall on and off waiver wires last season, and this year it's like that musical chairs has stopped. He is 53rd in the past 2 weeks, and if this guy's athleticism could ever translate to defensive stats for fantasy, he would graduate from glue guy to top 60 player. But he's 28 years old. He's in his 9th year in the league, and I just don't see that happening at this point. This player is a power forward only. Do you have any guesses who this guy is? We've talked about him a lot over the years, and we used to really believe in his upside as like a top 40 guy.
Wow, I'm so intrigued by this. This is I'm racking my brain and coming up completely empty on this.
I don't think I would get it either for some reason. This player is Aaron Gordon of the Denver Nuggets.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like he kind of is the epitome of the power forward glue guy. You know, because at this point it's like you're hanging on to what he brings for you, and you know what he brings. Honestly, a special ingredient he's bringing is he's become a field goal percentage super booster while still doing his usual thing. So he is currently, last I looked, 20th in the league in field goal percentage for the season at 55%. The last month, huge sample size, 67%. and he's a career 48% shooter. He used to be kind of like a chucker. Like I had him,
Yeah.
remember for years, I always had to have that guy, you know? And
Yes.
I had him.
Yeah. You were
Yeah.
always higher on him than everybody else, and held on because he would have these huge games, and then
Right.
you'd live off of it. You know, I think everybody would live off of it for a few games, and then yeah, the moment you give up, he'd have another one.
Exactly, man. And like he would have weeks where he would really torpedo your field goal percentage. So to see him become like a glue guy for your field goal percentage is really cool. And yeah, he's just really found his groove. Just give you a quick Aaron Gordon profile. Last 14 as far as statistical profile. The last 14 days, 17 points, 6 rebounds, almost 3 dimes. The defensive stats are insane. 0.3 steals and 0.1 blocks. I swear.
It's that low?
Yes. Yes. I just, so again, like that's what keeps him as a glue guy. Because if he
Like
was,
Dame must average more than that. That's crazy.
yeah, if he was, I would say if he was averaging 1.2 blocks and 1.5 steals, there's no way he could be on this list. You agree? Like
Well,
if
yeah,
it's,
he'd be top 30.
yeah, exactly. So like he's a power forward only player, which, you know, it's, he used to have the small
Yeah.
forward eligibility too. So I always consider that. But yeah, he's the obvious choice. It is the meat, the dried out meat with congealed gravy and potatoes glue guy. But you just want to make sure you're leaving full.
Yeah. He's watching him play, it's pretty cool though. I mean, you can tell he's very confident at this point.
Yeah, I
He's
agree with
found his
that.
niche. He's
Mhm.
eliminated the things that that is not that great about his game, and it's just gone all in on being a bully and just playing a lot of bully ball down there. And so
Love that.
it's amazing when the Nuggets play against inferior teams or teams that have a bunch of young guys,
Or the
and he
Warriors
just
on the inside, like he beats
or
up
the
on them.
Warriors, and he just will just offensive rebound, just his boxing out and his screening down low. I mean, it's just it. You almost feel embarrassed for the guys that he's playing against because it just feels like a little bit of a man against boys situation. And
I love
so
that.
those numbers always don't translate into superstar numbers,
Right.
but they're incredibly consistent, like you mentioned. And what he's given you is elite in those two categories.
You love to see a player who has, you know, this sky high upside in our minds for fantasy and for real life. A team identifies Aaron Gordon. They go out, they get him, you know, at that deadline deal a few years back, and he becomes exactly the player they needed to win a title. I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. So, you know, shout out.
Yeah, I appreciate that trade too, because I feel like it unlocked all this talk of like you don't need to always trade for the biggest superstar.
Yes.
If you can trade
Yes.
for the right third man on
Mhm.
your team, then it can kind of set it off. And so and I know that you're in the same boat as me as a trade junkie. Every like micro trade outside of a Pistons Wizards trade that we're just devouring, that it's fun for us to kind of see teams taking more of these mini swings or mid-sized swings.
It's such a good point. I mean, yeah, exactly. He was like the anti super team trade, but it was still a
Mm-hmm.
blockbuster for them. So, all
Yeah.
right, I'm passing it to you.
Oh, nice. Well, yes, here. So my last starting player is another guy. This is another guy who I wrote down on this list and then proceeded to rattle off his worst week of the season. And so it's my guys are making it a little bit more challenging for me to hype up, but I still kind of believe in their inclusion. And this is a lot more fringy of a player than Aaron Gordon, who should always be owned. This player I got here is
I gotta guess.
yeah,
Just give me his positions.
a center,
Oh, he's a
center
center.
only,
He's a center only.
and he's on a team that we already talked about.
And he's on a team that we already talked about. Um, oh, you didn't do Gogo Batase, did you?
I did too. I did too.
No, I was kind of
Yes,
joking. Okay, wow.
I
Okay,
did go
this
Batase.
is for our 14 team league listeners. 14 team league glue guys. No, he really has
Yeah,
had some nice runs. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
yeah. So I mean, really, I'm gonna start with the I mean, I guess the main thing is he started as kind of a streamer. You were like, all right, like I need a guy to kind of come in, get a couple blocks, get a couple rebounds. I want somebody that's going to be really exciting that I can yell when I'm reading the box scores. I can yell, Goga! Like there's
go.
something to that. Like there's a tiebreaker in that. Just in the same way that if you're going to a game that night and they're playing against the Wizards, you're probably going to pick up a Koulibaly or somebody just so you can watch him play.
You know what's the big secret, Nate? Is fantasy basketball is supposed to be fun.
That is true, and
that's what you're saying. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that really is. And so I think that there's something to be said about having guys that just make you kind of chuckle on your team, and especially if it's an even push with somebody else. But really, the reason that I wanted to include him on this is this Wendell Carter knee situation is starting to become a little bit giving me a little bit of hesitation. I'm a big Wendell Carter fan. I have been for a couple of years, but he can't really stay healthy. And this season he's only played in 14 games, and since he's come back, quote unquote, he's been in and out of the lineup with minutes restrictions. And so what we've seen is Goga has started 27 of their 34 games. And
that's
so
impressive.
You're not getting, so you're not getting anybody that's going to win you a league. This is not like a pickup that is all of a sudden going to change your fantasy fortunes. But really what you're getting is a guy that's averaging 1.7 blocks, shooting 61% from the field. So he's kind of it seems like a decent hold. I know that a lot of people might vote him most likely to be a made-up player in 2K. I realize that's an award that he might win, but he still is a young player at this point. He was the 18th pick in the 2019 draft out of Georgia, the country. But he was kind of a phenom coming out. I mean, he was the youngest player to play in the Russian league, and so he's been playing for a long time. And his transition from Indiana to Orlando has really been kind of this real slow growth improvement. We've been seeing that all season, and so I think that the reason that I want to touch on him tonight is that the Magic. A lot of these Magic guys are having a little bit of a slump with Wagner out. I think that's really exposed some holes on the team. Just how reliant or how awesome Wagner is. Where's the sound guy for this one? But I think once Wagner comes back, his role is a little bit more solidified, and so I think that he's a hold. What do you think? Do you think that he's a strictly Sunday streamer, or do you think that he's more of a hold in a 12 man team?
I appreciate the pedigree case. I actually liked hearing that. They kind of give me a little bit of a foundation to think about this. He's always been an intriguing fantasy player. Per minute monster in Indiana, where he had that two-headed per minute monster thing with Isaiah Jackson, which for us hard grinders was like super annoying because like I at least want to know who to pick up if Miles Turner goes down. Like, can we get this cleared up? Right. And so it's nice to have that cleared up. So I had to pull up the box score tonight because I know that Wendell Carter had a nice line tonight. And they each played 24 minutes and they each had really serviceable 12-team lines. So they kept Goga as the starter. And again, 24 minutes and 24 to the incumbent starter from the beginning of the season, Wendell Carter. And he had a great line. Yeah, 5 of 8 from the field, 10 points, 10 boards, 3 dimes, 2 blocks, and a steal. So like, yeah, he's a hold right now. Again, center is so plentiful this year. And if you play in a 1-center league, like in our league of record, or I think you can be faced with tough decisions with the center only players. So again, like that's what made the center part kind of awkward and for me as well. But I think it's a great point because I do think he's a little bit better than your average streamer. It's exciting that center is deep enough that most people can count on being able to find him on their waiver wire if they need him. But I think it's a smart idea to hold and see how things go with Wendell Carter, see how he responds to the minutes increase because, I knock on wood. I mean, if the guy goes back down, you're going to be really happy. And if he can keep, I'd say 20 to 24 minutes is a sweet spot. If Goga slips to like the 15, 18 range, I would not call him a hold there.
Yeah. He's, I mean, like I said, he's kind of a fringy hold. If you need a win on a Sunday, drop him. Like don't hesitate. But I'm just saying, that I think he provides a little bit more consistency than a lot of
Yes.
other options that are out there.
He's better than my glue guy center situation. He's a nice diamond in the rough. It offers our listeners like, oh, hey, this is more than a streamer, and he's more than a streamer right now. More than a streamer.
Boy, I was about to go for that song too. That's amazing.
Okay, so I'll just get into it for my center here, Nate. So this spot for a long time belonged to Jonas Valanciunas, and this was my reasoning. Anybody could have had him for free at the beginning of the season, and so I dug into a little bit further. And his season rank of 30 and being 89% rostered, those numbers are just too high at this point. Even though he was dirt cheap in drafts, to call him a glue guy for me. And so
bit of a slip over the last couple weeks. So
true. I considered the slip and dipping him in. I considered the slip. I did. So center was tough. I decided that Jonas was above glue guy. Last year, my center was Ivica Zubac, and he just went down as well. So I think
I had him on my list, and I had to cross him off. Yep.
So I will say this about this player. I think I found the perfect glue guy center. I didn't overthink it, and I'm just curious if you might know who this player is. We both love this
Nick
guy.
Richards.
No, he didn't quite graduate. No, I went with Onyeka Okongwu in Atlanta.
Oh,
I did. Man.
Oh boy. Okay, this is good. I'm glad that you got this because I don't feel he should be on this list. So I'm really excited to be sold on this.
Let's talk it out. So for me, this screams glue guy. His season rank is 99. He's 66% rostered. That's right in the sweet spot. He's doing just enough, even in his rough patches here, to like pinch ourselves and hope for a Capella trade yet again. So let's run that back for another year. But seriously, like, why is Capella on the Hawks? Like, so
why?
Like, I know the Hawks look lost. They're active on the trade market right now. DeJounte Murray rumors are swirling. Please attach Capella, but this is what you get. And for me, he is a season-long hold, but this is why he's a glue guy. You get great percentages: 10 points a game, 7 boards a game, a block, and a 3. That's about what you get. He has some nice ceiling games. I think there's a top 40 player in waiting here. So in his 4 NBA seasons, he has averaged 20 minutes a game. He has averaged 64% field goals, 75.5% free throws. And I know you hate this. I didn't do the per 32 for you, but his per 36, it just gives you an idea. 14.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 2 blocks and a steal. Until there is a Capella trade, he's a glue guy. Like, he's a player where if you saw him fall to your waiver wire, you wouldn't be shocked. I would spend, 10 to 15% of your budget on him and just hold on through the trade deadline at least. But yeah, I think going through these centers, he just felt like the right middle ground glue guy, because you can't take the Capella trade possibility and stick that on the stat sheet week to week. You're still trying to win games. So he's still a glue guy for your roster right now.
Yeah, it isn't totally. We've had a bunch of snow in both the places that we're at right now, and a shout out to James Robinson, who's in our league, did some manual research and kind of put out the most added players in our joint league, which is a small sample size, just our particular one. Yeah. And Okongwu, I believe, was second or third most added, which only spoke to the fact that I think that he's spent probably 97% of the season on a roster. But he just often ends up being that last cut on a Sunday or something like that. But I 100% agree with everything that you said, in that I love the talent, love the skill set. I'm a huge Okongwu.
I know you are.
We're both big Okongwu fans.
I would say you're slightly bigger, not that anyone gives a crap, but I'll give you the carrot. I'll give you the carrot. You can be the Okongwu guy.
Oh, that's fair. Okay, but I appreciate that. But I guess I don't know. And maybe it's because I've been in love with for so long that maybe I'm falling out of love a little bit. But I guess I'm wanting to see a little bit higher floor out of it, and so I feel like for him, and maybe it's just my mentality, I view him as this breakout potential guy. I view him as a potential league winner, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's a time to recalibrate expectations and realize and just appreciate what he's giving you for the season, which is good blocks, good defensive stats, good rebounds, good percentages, and be happy with that. And if anything else changes, then then you can take that as well.
This is a very important depth of league thing. Slightly shallower formats, 11 roster spots. He's on the fringes. Like he might be, you might have to cut. He might be coming up on your waiver wire here and there. And the league I've held him all year. It's a deeper league, and it feels really good. And so I think my perception is a little skewed because I didn't have a single day where I looked in the mirror and said, Jamie, today's the day you're dropping in Yeka Kongwu, because the league's deep enough, so it's different. It's about making those tough decisions. But for me, like definitely through the trade deadline, like if you have a Yeka Kongwu, especially if you're doing well in the standings, like if you're not, man, if you got 4 wins and you're fighting, trade him to a team in first or second who wants to wait through the trade deadline. Get that value. Don't just kick him, you know what I mean? Because that. We talked about most glue guys, and I think you're right. Maybe he doesn't fit the traditional definition in this way, because I had mentioned that like a glue guy is often more valuable to your team as far as production than he is as a trade asset. Now in Kongu, I think it's the opposite. I think you'll find someone in your league who you can get more, you can get a return that's going to help you more, right now, especially if it's like in a package. Because there are people like me and Nate who just like, I'm going to see it through the deadline if I can, because we both know what he can be if they finally trade this aging center from a team that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Who's still producing, by the way. Let's not just, we always.
He's awesome. He's awesome on the season.
I know, exactly. So like, because we love Okongwu so much, I think it might come across that we're Capella haters. It's not that. I just want him to go somewhere else where he can help a team,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all. So
yeah. I have a couple guys that, and I figure these are gonna be kind of quick hitters. So you have a second team that you're rolling through after this, or?
No, I got guys though. Like, let's hear your quick hitters. I do have a couple guys I want to toss out. I didn't make it, but I'm not going to do the full second team just to keep the pod around an hour.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you. I got a couple guys that I kind of was wrestling with, and I wanted to just get a quick off the cut take from you on this. Sure. The first guy, and this is somebody that we've kind of gone around in circles on a little bit, and preseason, I know you were really high on him. I was really down on him, and there's been points all season where I've thought, oh man, all right, I was wrong on him. He's awesome. And then other weeks, I'm like, oh no, he's terrible. Like he's definitely terrible. And
can I guess?
Yeah,
it's Jeremy Sohan.
No,
is it his teammate?
It's not a different team. Same. We've already talked about the team once. If that's is a matter. He's a bench guy now at this point, which is interesting. But that's excuse me, Obi Toppin.
Okay, interesting. Obi Toppin, yeah. I was excited about seeing what he could do in Indiana as a coming up and down the floor guy. He's just not a stat accumulator.
Yeah, I mean he's 93rd on the season total.
For what? What had he done?
Fantasy.
I know, but like for what had he done good?
Well, yeah. So I mean, it's really he's not elite in anything. Right. I mean, it's just like he's kind of like hitting you a little bit. So he's averaging 12, 4, 1.5, 0.5 blocks, 0.5 steals, 1.4 threes.
That's a streamer.
Decent percentage. But it just feels all helter skelter a little bit. But there's games I watch and I'm like, he's putting it together. He's just stretched. Yeah. He's hitting threes and everything. But I was curious if you had a different take on him. For me, I just kind of view him as I'll pick him up for back-to-backs, and same. I don't know anything.
Oh, exact same. That. No, it turned out that he's just a streamer. It's really hard to predict the games where he's going to pop off. That's why I like a player like Aaron Nesmith for this list, because he gives you that floor where you're going to get the defensive stats, and he just gives you a nice solid foundation, and the minutes are always there. I feel like, and I've watched a lot of Indiana, there's games where Mathurin pops off. Good luck predicting those. Mm-hmm. Toppin doesn't usually pop off in those games, and so the stats come out to glue guy, but the experience is rough. Because if you do pick him up for a 10-day stretch, what if you don't get one of those blow up games? You're probably getting a player that's outside the top 150. So I think it kind of evens out to a glue guy, but the experience isn't worth it. I'm curious with Pascal Siakam, and then I will say we haven't mentioned fully like the trade of Pascal Siakam going to the Indiana Pacers in exchange for Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks, which are going up to Toronto. That was just finished today, so can't wait to see that. And we'll see what effect it has on guys like Obi Toppin. But I think up to this point, I was a little over my skis on him. Again, he was one of these guys I was like, take a shot late in the draft, see what the role is, and then don't be afraid to cut. And I think he's a decent streamer, but I don't think he quite makes school guy status.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're in the same boat there.
Lord, good boat. Okay, let me hit you with one actually, because I think we should touch on this guy. He didn't quite make my list, but he's been solid as heck, and I think you're pretty high on this guy. And now he has a new backcourt mate in Emmanuel Quickly, and that's Dennis Schroeder. Did you give any thought to Dennis Schroeder as a glue guy, backcourt guy?
I did, and then but I didn't spend enough time on it. He crossed my mind, and I'm glad that you included him on this quick outtake here.
I mean, when I was doing my initial research, this stat's about a week old, he was still the 55th ranked player for season rank on the season and 82% rostered. And it's funny, right when the Quickly trade happened, I love Emmanuel Quickly. I was faced with a moment in our league of record where I was choosing between Emmanuel Quickly, Dennis Schroeder, and Colin Sexton. And I couldn't quite shake out. It was after the first game Quickly played. Couldn't quite shake it out. I picked up Colin Sexton, and I'm feeling good about that. But all three of these guys, I think, are guys you should be sticking with. So yeah, I think.
Ironically, I had dropped Colin Sexton and was eyeing Quickly too, and he got scooped right before me. I got busy, and so I had the same thoughts too.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that. Yeah, so I think a shout out to Dennis Schroeder. There's plenty of point guards. I mean, we didn't touch on Tyus Jones. Maybe he's a little better than glue guy now over there in Washington. I mean, he was a pretty rough start, but now I think he's just doing Tyus Jones things over there.
Yeah.
So any other quick
Quickly has been, or yeah, Schroeder has been providing. I think there was a little bit of concern initially that he was going to get regulated to like that 20 minutes a night, totally off the fantasy radar. But he actually has been pretty good on the bench and been better actually.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think he's comfortable in that role.
Yeah. I have two guys that I want that didn't quite make my list just because their roster percentage was a little too high, but I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out here, both in the same position. And so one was, you were talking about earlier about looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, that today's the day that I'm going to cut this guy. And ironically, I had this moment. I had the moment where I looked in the mirror, and actually I even texted you. I texted you.
Did you cut him?
I was like, hey, I'm going to cut this guy this week. I'm ready to. And I was like admitting that I'm ready to cut John Collins.
Yeah.
And then he went on a 2-week run, and he came running back, and now we're blissfully going to Vegas, and we're going to kind of get we're eloping. But
don't do it.
But
don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not marry John Collins. Don't.
We already got the hotel room. I don't know. It's not refundable. But
was it a group? Was it a Groupon?
It wasn't. I got it. But I get all of my I link it to my points, so I have all my points of my credit card.
Which Emily will appreciate the points accumulation, even if you marry John Collins.
Exactly. She's gonna get to use those Delta miles. But in any case, I think we had talked about a preseason, and that I was thinking that, all right, maybe we're looking at a top 30 guy in disguise because he's from Utah, and he's born in Utah, but rather than the complete bust he was before, and he's kind of settled somewhere in the middle, in that what you're getting is really good field goal percentage, a little bit of threes, a little bit of blocks, and a lot of rebounds. And so he's been really consistent and been I feel like he's just been a pretty good glue guy in Utah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a glue guy. He's a glue guy power forward. I considered him. Aaron Gordon made the cut, but what he's doing night to night is a little more clear, which is like that crazy field goal percentage, and the rebounds are a little higher, the points are a little higher. But you still have the defensive. John Collins, when you look at it on the season, is averaging 0.6 steals and 0.8 blocks. So not awesome. But it feels like on a night to night basis, you could get 3 blocks and a steal at any point. So there's a little name cachet with him too. So I think, for me, he doesn't graduate from glue guy. I think John Collins this season has been a glue guy. He's a little less consistent in his role in Utah than a guy like Aaron Gordon. But yeah, he's a hold. I also have him in a season-long spot, and I did the same thing. I thought about dropping him, and I'm just like, no, he hasn't quite given me a reason to. I'm gonna figure out my streaming plan a different way.
Yeah, the only reason he didn't make my list is just that as you mentioned, the rule in Utah gives you a little bit of pause on safety.
It does. Yep, that's for sure. Let's give some flowers to a man who I want to ask you if he's a glue guy. And it's funny, I made a little poll in our league chat on WhatsApp because we're sophisticated and our league has a WhatsApp and yours doesn't. So maybe he does. I don't
No
know.
big deal.
And so, Nate, you voted on this guy. As far as I asked, who would you rather have rest of season, Aaron Naismith, Aaron Gordon, or Grayson Allen? And you voted for Grayson Allen. He is the 59th ranked player this season. He is a shooting guard and small forward. And he didn't quite make my first team, as I'm like, I know it's disgusting, but like I think he's a graduate glue guy at this point.
Mhm.
Just there was too big of an offensive vacuum, and he's filling it, and he's doing things I didn't know he could. I thought his greatest skill was like giving guys 6 to 8 week injuries. Like, but like, man, he's athletic, dude. Like, he is athletic. He's like, he got a little Caruso in his game as far as defensively and like crashing the boards and like, yeah, man. Like, I didn't know he was this good. He's just balling. So, I think he is a glue guy as far as I guarantee he's like not, if your team's good, he's not one of your best 7 players, probably because you already had the guys you drafted and then you picked up Grayson Allen and you rolled with it. But yeah, man, he's been nuts. So shout out Grayson Allen.
Yeah, I had the 100% same thought. I was like, I'm gonna put Grayson Allen on air, and then I was like, nah, he's just too good at this point. And I feel like I wanted to because he definitely falls into that category of guys that were on your wire and maybe even had on your roster, and then you dropped, and then you picked up again.
Yep.
I think I had him twice and then dropped him, and I fully don't expect to ever see him come back around again at this point.
You'll never see Grayson Allen again.
I know, it's so sad.
Okay, one more quick hitter. I wanted to give quick shout out to your boy Sadiq Bey. He had a really nice run. I think right now he's more of a streamer, but you can hold him. You can hold him. He's been really good this year. He's 55% rostered right now. But I think he could have made the list. I think he fits the criteria. He gives you a nice floor as far as his surprisingly good rebounder, hitting 2 threes a game. And so, yeah, are you still rostering Sadiq Bey?
No, I dropped him when Jalen Johnson came back, not because there was any panic or whatever. He just became a little bit more expendable of a streamer at that point in my mind.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, chop and block player. So shout out Sadiq Bey having a nice season. Then the last mention, I gotta, and at least people aren't going to come out of my mouth. He's honorable mention. He's not first team. He's not second team, but he's so handsome. And that is the Tsunami Poppy. That is Kelly Oubre Jr. I would say he's always rostered in our league because it's just fun to be the one to pick him up. He's 57% rostered, and he has these pockets where he is most rostered. But to me, he's more of a catch him when he's hot, ride it, and don't be afraid to drop in when he's clucking and chucking. He's not quite a glue guy.
He's always hot, so you're
always hot.
And you want to be catching.
You want to be touching him
it's
when he's hot, which is anytime.
It is surprising. I mean, the steals in particular have been really tremendous this season.
They're back.
I think there's a lot of talk about steals not necessarily being the most pass stats not necessarily being the most best indicator of what somebody's going to do the next quarter of the season or so. But so far, his steals in Philadelphia have been terrific. So I think as his minutes kind of continue to creep up post car accidents, then I think that he could be a really good glue guy.
True. Yeah, he could be a second half glue guy. If we decide to run it back and do the all glue guy award team, I wouldn't be shocked if Oubre makes just a nasty charge up the ranks and takes the small forward spot. So shout out Tsunami Poppy. You're a beautiful man, and you will always be respected. Please reach out to us. I know you're a longtime listener, so we can't wait to hear from you. You can be the face of this podcast. We'd be happy to have you design our logo.
Why not? I know we need a sound guy. We need a more beautiful face. We already have a great coffee sponsor in Steelbridge Coffee, but which I got great updates from them this week. It was all icy. He was trying to go out and bike around delivering his coffee, and he couldn't. But so give him a hand. He can't deliver by bicycle. There's too much ice. But go to steelbridgecoffee.com/BTJ, and the mail is a little bit easier for them at this point.
I love that. That's such a live update. That's actually useful information for probably a nice chunk of our listeners. So yeah, your Steelbridge deliveries, got to go grab that. When you're out next time you're out, go get that. But that's nice update. I appreciate that. So make sure you go check it out. Steel Bridge Coffee /PTJ. So we just ran through glue guys very efficiently. So you're welcome, everybody. We tried to keep the rambling to a minimum. So yeah, there it is. It was a really good time. It's been tough with the weather coordinating this. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Natron Clean for his flexibility, and we'll always make it work. And just a reminder that later in the season, when we're getting around trade deadline time into the second half, things for me are going to settle down a bit. We're going to have a more consistent schedule. So we appreciate when everyone drops, what you're listening to it and keeping up with the content. We gained a few subscribers on YouTube. We've had a really consistent chunk of engagement there. So I'm glad we're doing that this season. I think a lot of people like to interact that way. So shout out to anyone who liked the video last week, can consume the content. We want to give you different ways to listen to the content. So we really appreciate it. If you're new, welcome. And if you're a longtime listener, you're welcome.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that's kind of stuck with us, and we're excited. I mean, this obviously is our Super Bowl, and I imagine we're gonna have a little bit of a post glue guys hangover
That's rough.
as we're trying to be like get hyped up for the next topic, which but we'll be here.
We will be here. That's nice. I appreciate that. All right. Well, shout out to anybody who's kind of getting through this weather here. It's crazy all around the country. But yeah, here in our chunk of the world, the PNW, it's been nuts. So enjoy time with your family, even if they're driving you crazy. If you are, if you've been cooped up in the house like me, and keep grinding fantasy. This is a time where things start to formulate. You figure out, okay, like, where am I at? What do I need to do to solidify this team? It's a great time to be trading. Honestly, that's it. I'm going to start making some offers. I need a small forward, so shout out in our league of record if you'd like to help me out with that. I got plenty of good guys on my team, so give me a holler. So for Natron Clean, this is your boy Flyin J. We will talk to y'all soon.
Later.
All right, peace.